Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming so early. 9 o'clock is a rough one. So this is the breakfast that I wish I ate this morning. I hope you guys ate something. Thank you so much for coming early this morning. If you have to leave early for some reason, or you just can't deal with being here so early, this is everything you need to know about the entire talk. We are just about, and I'm trying to make it easy, we're just about to enter an era where information, the stuff that we deal with all the time, is going to be transformed in ways that we can't even imagine. You've been hearing a lot about augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality the last couple of days, but this is a little bit different. This is the information that we use all the time. This is tweets that we make. There are documents that we write. It's presentations we make. It's letters that we write. That type of information is vastly going to change. So am I talking about this disgusting, dirty, horrible information sign that's right outside Port Authority? Well, actually, yes. As a matter of fact, this is a perfect example of the type of information that could change. Because you've been looking at augmented reality for the last few days, you can imagine very easily that instead of seeing this beautiful signage, you actually could see, you maybe would know who you were, where you were going, because you go to the same place every day. It would show you, like, where the stops are. You could get a lot of information from this sign in particular. But in the future, I think the nature of information, the things, the signage, the things that we create, the things that we read, is going to be quite different because of all the things that you've heard about the last few days. So let me show you an example. This, to me, this is a little bit abstract, but I think this will illustrate perfectly where I think we're going to be heading with information, both from the design and the consumption standpoint. This is called Existence. Excellent piece that was done. So if the Wi-Fi gods are with us, we'll get to see this. This is a vision for how information can really be. So I guess I have to drag this over to a different seat, like I'm being cursed by my computer. All right, well, we'll skip over the video for just a moment. We'll get back to it. Okay, so in the experiential design, information will be part of us. It'll be part of the environment. Charlie Fink likes to talk about how the world will be painted with data. This is actually a really excellent picture. It's conceptual, but this is what it's going to be like. Now, I'm not saying every time you use Microsoft Office, you're going to look as cool as this guy, but you can imagine that information will actually be quite a bit in the environment. I don't think we're going to get to this level of, like Guardians of the Galaxy type of information painted all over the place, but it's an interesting vision for where we could be going, right? It's easy to do technology-wise, but I seem to think that it's going to be more like this. On demand, information will surround you, will appear, will disappear contextually, and you'll be able to control it yourself. So this data example, which let's see if this one works, because it's embedded. This is a much better example for me to illustrate what happens when you combine the three major elements that we're going to have to put together, which is mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality. But you combine it with data, and you combine it with artificial intelligence, and the effect is dramatic. The types of things that you can imagine are going to be more alive, right? They're going to convey more information. So why should you believe anything I just said? It's a good question. I've actually been doing this for quite a while. I've been around 3D and data and information design and consumption for quite a while. Back in the early days of 3D, there was something that we had to do. We had to prepare the content by hand almost. We're not that far from that. It's still pretty difficult. So what I'm going to talk to you about today that you'll notice specifically is that when I was building out the reality rooms for Microsoft, I work for Microsoft in the garage. We build out these reality rooms. I learned a lot about the design of this stuff. And as I was doing that, I realized that the things that we need the most are new constructs, new mechanics, new infrastructure that you've heard a lot about the last few days, and definitely new tool sets to make all of this come true. So when we talk about information constructs, we need better containers. So when you put a better container around information, you can actually have it do much more. I want to put the container at a very particular altitude. It has to be able to be below insights, because that's something that definitely deep learning, artificial intelligence can provide for us in the future. But it's got to be above data, right? Data is no use to anybody. It's the packaging of data. It's the insights that come from data. That's really where all the value is. So this container has to be placed exactly where it's most useful. And so in doing that, we go from a very fixed, so most of our information, like 90% of the time when we're consuming information, it's dead. There may be a few links, there may be a few videos, there may be some things that we would like to do with that, take action on, but for the most part, you can't do anything with it except share it. In the future, everything will be dynamic and flexible. It'll be very time-based, sort of like that video that you just saw, right, where things were moving. They're active systems. The entire world is an active system, yet our information is quite static and dead still. That's going to change. And we will go from things being quite isolated and disconnected to being able to be mashed up and integrated quite easily, like building blocks, like Legos. Information will follow us out into the world. It'll follow us into the workplace or the home. But most importantly for me, this new container, this new construct, is going to be able to be something that we can all dig into and take just the pieces that we need. Or we can modify those pieces even better. So there's the data, the underlying content or the values. There's the representation, doesn't matter. It could be sound. It could be a highly polished visualization. It could be a bunch of words. It could be photos. It doesn't matter what the representation is. And then action, because all information is completely useless without an action, right? Even if the action is, I choose to do nothing. That's still a very valid action. So this container that we're talking about, this information object, this container, has all these things built in. And we know that many, many, many people are applying lots of interesting artificial intelligence, along with deep learning algorithms to identify objects, to the data that underlies our basic information. We also have an incredible amount of work that's being done on the representational side. We can go anywhere from a very simple drawing to a super, just like we saw earlier, a very alive system, right, where things are moving. You get the meaning from that. And then finally, through things like reinforcement learning, you can actually have the system not have to be trained. It'll watch what you're doing. Your information will know how you like to consume it, when you like to consume it, and maybe because of your context, where you are, I'm on the subway train, I'm walking down the street, I'm in my home, it will know how to draw itself properly because of this type of learning. So altogether, we have the three elements we need. We have AI being applied, we have XR being applied, and we have the emotional, right, the EQ part. It makes a pretty wild mixture. And for me, this basic building block, this information object, is what's going to help us to mash up and build new things, combine things in ways that we've never been able to do before, except through highly manual processes, which, quite frankly, you all know is no fun. So now for the mechanics. If all of our information was contained in this object, how would it work? This is going to really require a gigantic amount of work from all of us, but everybody here is going to be contributing to that. The model has to change, meaning we don't want to have to create in such a manual fashion all of our information. We want to do the parts that we need to do, and we want to let the machines do what they're great at doing. Right, so authoring is going to go from this highly painful, very long process to something that's, I would say, more semi-autonomous. Let's take an example. Like, let's say that you're writing a new Medium article, right? For me, I need a system that will let me do the hard part, which is writing the article, and then auto-generate my LinkedIn posts and my Instagrams and my tweets, and also produce all the metadata that's going to help other people identify this, help the machines identify it. I think you can even go as far as having it summarize what you're doing into an infographic automatically. Maybe even do like a text-to-speech so that you have a podcast. And then you can get to the underlying data because we want to interop with the data. So from that one thing, just writing a Medium post, you get all of those others automatically. So imagine that, right? You don't have to do each of those by yourself anymore, which is really horrible today. When you consume information, right, the playback, the consumption of it, you have to be able to design a system that knows, for your context, what is the right level of detail. right? Like, anybody who's ever worked on any kind of content in this space or games knows that level of detail is how you control the fidelity, right? How much are you cheating? How high quality are you? But for the playback in this new world, every piece of information object, that object itself will know how to draw itself. So for me, every object has a common form. But what we need to do is for every object be able to deduce the summary, the high-level summary, the super detailed part. When we do that, we create a system, an entire system that can be worked on at different altitudes, different levels. It's very exciting. So imagine today you create that. Let's take that Medium post or tweet or a photo or a song. Doesn't matter. Any piece of information. The way that we want to work with that should be pretty standardized, right? So if we want to see like what's related to that object, we should be able to see what's related. If we want to go from different altitudes from the summary down to the detail, we should be able to do that automatically, right? It should just be as easy as pinching, as easy as like the things that we've learned with our iPhones or anything else. We also are storytellers, all of us. And we're I guess, getting pretty good at narrative storytelling now through all of our tools and our practice. But honestly, we all know that we should be having conversations with our information. And we're not, right? We're having conversations with Siri every once in a while or Alexa, but not with our information. And why do you think that is? Because you look stupid. No. That's true, but that's not why. The reason is because we don't have systems that actually let us deal with our information in that way quite yet. We're technically capable of doing it, but it's going to take you working on this and integrating it into the content and the information that you're creating to want to drive that forward. So as far as the platform, there's nothing I need to say about this, right? You've heard all about the AR cloud. Fundamentally need to have this to be able to do what we want to do with information anywhere out in the world or within our homes. AI-powered creation tools have to come into existence more quickly than they are now. Adobe's doing some fantastic work. Microsoft is doing some fantastic work, Google. All the high-tech giants are actually integrating AI into the creation process, into the authoring, and pretty soon, I think, into the playback. When we have a better tool set and we have information objects, anything is possible, right? We can actually let the machines do what they're great at, and we can do what we're great at, which is being ingenious, right? I see that, okay. We know that AI is actually quite good at doing the things that humans are not good at, right? Watching things, analyzing things, paying attention to detail. People not so good, right? So why don't we leverage that to help build this entire system, this entire universe of smart information objects that can be recombined, mashed up, and create new things. So on the experience side, for me, I've always wanted to do this, right? And I was sitting on my back deck and I was reading Ready Player One on my iPad. And the thought came to me is like, why can't I see the holograms? Why can't they be playing out? Why can't I explore the story that I'm reading as I'm doing it? Well, as it turns out, Charlie Fink did just that with his recent book, right? You are exploring the information, not just consuming it, right? It's a much more rich and fun experience when you do that. Information spaces are a completely new realm. Many decades ago, Muriel Cooper over at the MIT Media Lab did this incredibly inspiring information space design. And you could sort of assign whatever category you want to this. I sort of thought it looked like a 3D spreadsheet when I first saw it. It could just be an information space, doesn't really matter. But the fact is, once we have information objects that know how to draw themselves, that know how to recombine, that know how to put themselves together in such a way that they create new things that you've never seen before, anything's possible. More recently, we have Flow Immersive, doing the same thing that Muriel Cooper did decades ago, but on a much larger scale in a browser. So you can actually do, this is Hamlet. Like if you're looking at the screen, I think there's 170,000 characters being shown in real time. It's a completely different experience than what you've ever done before. It's unimaginable what could happen once we get our information into spaces where we can explore and recombine and do new types of storytelling. Yoon Park, who's one of my colleagues at Microsoft, does beautiful typographic sculpture. This is something that, again, doesn't have to be art. I love it as art, but this could very well be your next meeting. So many things are possible. So start to think about that, right? There are so many things possible now when you can take information that are in smart containers, recombine them, and put them into the world or into your workplace where people can now have a completely different view of them. You've probably heard this, right? Information will become the interface. When we strip away all the UI and all the affordances and all the things that we built up over decades and decades of GUI, we're left with the purity of just the information, just the content itself. And that's how the world works, right? There are no buttons and arrows and scrollers on the bowl of oranges on your table. You know exactly what to do with that bowl of oranges. You will know exactly what to do with information that you find in the world. We do not need to bring all of our tired affordances and UI into this new information space realm. People will know exactly what to do with it. That said, this is a new offering from Microsoft. I think this is SharePoint Spaces, I believe it's called. So you could argue that this is either good or bad. It's an interesting experiment. I have my own thoughts about this. But you should start thinking about putting your own information into places. Like, what does it mean to put information into a place? It's sort of like remember I showed you the horrible, filthy subway sign in New York at first? That's sort of like what this is, right? You're doing signage. You're putting information in places like wayfinding, where people need to figure out what to do with it. We've all seen this video, right? This is with, I think this is with Leap Motion and some other things. So people are able to put interfaces, right? Like, translucent holographic interfaces onto, objects, onto their hands, right? Looks like pretty promising, right? Don't do this. Don't do this, please. So just to finish up really quickly, when we figure out how to do this, right, it's not going to be about the authoring. It's not going to be about the creation. It's going to be about how the truth reveals itself to you, right? It's the beauty in that reveal that's the important part, right? Not getting things to be beautiful from the very beginning. So I would challenge you to think, what if anything at all, could tell its own story? Right, so imagine this smart information container we've been talking about. Everything is created with that. It knows exactly how to tell its story at any time and any place in the world. What would that be like? I can imagine that. Can you imagine? I'm pretty sure we can do that. And I think it will happen very soon with your help. So is anybody with me? Yeah. All right. Well, with that, welcome to the age of smart information. Thank you. By the way, I'll be outside doing a book signing. I have a few books with me for the first 5 people that actually follow me on Twitter. So there you go.
Awesome.
Shameless plug. Thank you so much.
So real quick, what is that Twitter handle?
It's _Pell_.
All right. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. So if we have a minute, I'd be happy to answer one question.
Let's see if any
Survey
questions.
says. Yeah, it's too early.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I'll take one question from the audience. How about just one question? Can we do that?
One question from the audience.
Why should we do that leap motion thing with our hands?
Oh, because it's stupid. Don't, for the love of God, right? Please, if there's one thing I could ask all of you to do, please, 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 do not bring the UI of the 80s and 90s into the future, for God's sakes. Nothing should be flat in the future. Nothing at all should be flat, right? Content needs to be freed from its containers, not stuffed into menus. Thank you. Let's discuss on Twitter.
It wasn't the hands, it was the menus.
Excuse me?
It wasn't the hands, it was the menus.
It was the menu on the hand. It was both. Neither one gets a pass.
Great.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys coming out so early.